strengthening our workforce on Triad Today. Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to a special edition of Triad Today. Over the next half hour, we'll see how the Winston-Salem Urban League is helping young people to stay in school, seniors to find employment, and laid-off workers to get back into the workforce. That and much more. We'll also have news of an important job fair, so stay with us. Now, joining me for the entire program will be someone you see all the time on Triad Today on our infamous roundtable, and that is, of course, Keith Granberry, the president and CEO of the Winston-Salem Urban League. I'm meeting him now. But in each of these segments that you'll see over the next half hour, Keith will have some special guests with him. We're going to meet those right now. J. Paul, director, we can see seated just to the right of Keith is Greg Manny. He's a CIT participant. We'll tell you what CIT is in just a moment. He's a former advertising executive. And next to him is Steve Jones. He's director of the Careers in Transition program. That's where the CIT comes from that we were referencing, that Greg Manny is a part of. Steve, let me start with you. What is the Careers in Transition program?
Well, basically that program is designed to serve middle management to executive level personnel, folk who've been downsized and displaced and that are seeking to rebrand and transition themselves back into the economy.
And what kind of, when you say help and assistance, give me a specific example of something that you might do for or with someone who's been laid off, who's an executive.
Well, an individual will come in, of course, we register them and do an assessment, and we set them up for case management, and they'll get into our program and come to our regular scheduled sessions with our employers.
Greg, let me throw this at you for a minute, if you would. Just take about 30 seconds and tell me what your situation was in terms of what you were doing before the layoff.
I was a member of an advertising agency here locally, and on their production staff was a senior producer, producing television commercials and radio commercials for large brands in the agency. Wachovia was one of them that we did before Wachovia.
And then what happened? They just downsized?
And they downsized. They lost several of their broadcast accounts, and so a lot of the broadcast folks.
How was your job search going before you got involved with the Urban League?
Not very well, especially locally, because there are few advertising agencies in town. And so I was looking at them. I have the benefit of being able to freelance the type of work I do and do it on a contract basis. So I was able to quickly get into that.
How long have you been in the CIT program, Careers in Transition program?
I've been into it about a year now. I started in spring of last year, and it was very beneficial to me during that awkward period where I wasn't freelancing and I was trying to find more permanent work.
And what ways was it helpful? I mean, can you give an example of something that maybe it helped you to reposition yourself to re-enter the workforce, or give me some example of
Absolutely. The biggest benefit was it put me in a group of people that were like my work peers, that were all people that had been displaced, not for any particular reason other than the economy, and gave us all an opportunity to sort of rebrand ourselves, work with presentations, work with interviewing, work with ways to get back into that job market, not on a freelance basis, but on a permanent basis.
Steve, what kind of advantages and benefits are there to participants like Greg in the CIT program?
I think the uniqueness, Jim, is the fact that in addition to what he just said, the training and all the topics we go over, is actually position them in front of the employer. It circumvents the online process. So you're positioned right in front of the employer. The employer comes in, recruits, shares with you expectations, the footprint, and what have you.
Keith, how does the community in general benefit from a program like Careers in Transition, from you helping guys like Greg? How does the community at large, even if somebody's watching the show and says, well, I don't know anything about advertising, I don't know anything about Greg, he seems like a nice guy, but how does it help everybody?
Well, they know someone like Greg. There's someone in their community like Greg who's an executive, who's done all the right things. He's did everything he needed to do, but he still was downsized. This program helps create opportunities for people like Greg to come in, meet directly with employers, rebrand and retrain themselves so they can re-enter the marketplace, but not only re-enter the marketplace, but also establish new skills set that they need in order to get that gainful employment.
Greg, 10 seconds on what it means to you.
It's huge. It's been a big influence, and as Steve mentioned, the putting in front of employers directly, hiring managers that you never get to see in these days when it's online. That's the way to do it.
All right.
One more thing. I think we have to note that Wells Fargo has funded this program, and they made it possible to fund this program, specifically around the middle managers, because a lot of times we look at the underserved population and we forget about that middle class. And this program is specifically geared toward the middle class, the middle manager, and the executive.
Kudos to Wells Fargo for helping out on that. The wsurban.org is the website, which we'll give you throughout the program. But what a great success story. Greg as well, and this work that Steve is doing, Keith, overseeing it. And thanks, gentlemen. Keith will stay with me, and we'll switch to another topic of interest to you right after this.